A new opinion piece in the New York Times takes a look at why progressive policies of West Coast states have not been able to effectively address serious issues like homelessness, drug abuse, and mental health. Nick Kristoff's new column is titled, "What Have We Liberals Done to the West Coast?" And then he writes this, quote, "The problem isn't with liberalism, it's with West Coast liberalism. The two states with the highest rates of unsheltered homelessness are California and Oregon. The three states with the lowest rates of unsheltered homelessness are all blue ones in the Northeast: Vermont, New York, and Maine. The lowest rates of unsheltered homelessness in those three Northeast blue states." So my take is the West Coast central problem is not so much that it's unserious, is that it's infected with an ideological purity that is focused more on intentions than oversights and outcomes. And may I add, the health and safety of those very people that are out on the streets. Maybe a healthy Republican Party keeps the Democratic Party healthy and vice versa. Nick joins us now. Nick, I apologize for the editorial inside of your editorial. This has just been maddening to me for quite some time, especially with so much at stake in 2022 and now in 2024. You look at the West Coast, and I just couldn't agree with you more. And one of my complaints, and the Rev and I talk about this all the time, there's nothing progressive about putting people with mental health challenges out on the street, sleeping over grates in cold, freezing weather. There's nothing progressive about chanting "defund the police" from your Park Slope coffee house when there are parents that are in some of the truly disadvantaged parts of New York City, Philadelphia, and across America that say we need more police officers on our streets while our kids are walking to school. We need more police officers around schools, around grocery stores, around churches. This sort of progressivism somehow leaves the most truly disadvantaged behind.
Yeah, I mean, look, the metric of progressivism should be progress. And we're just not seeing that progress in one area after another, from homelessness to crime, to mental health services, to addiction. And in fact, they're going the wrong way. And, this is something that is sort of personal to me because, as you know, I'm in this blue-collar farming community in rural Oregon, and it has been, as you say, it's the most vulnerable who tend to get left behind, who don't get the education results. Oregon has and Washington have below average high school graduation rates. And indeed, in terms of homelessness, I had a schoolmate who was struggling with alcoholism and mental health problems, and was sleeping out in the open. And in some other states, you might have been able to get committed to an institution and get help. Here, that was not possible. And she froze to death. Stacy froze to death one winter night. And it's hard to see how we were protecting Stacy rather than completely failing her.
Nick, one of the things that really struck me about reading your column is that I've always talked with Joe about latte liberals. And it struck me that a lot of what we're seeing that we call progressive, and I like what you said, that the root word is progress, is they see people as social experiments, like they're in class somewhere in an Ivy League school, rather than human beings that they're supposed to be solving the problem. Talk about how the human element, and when you talk about the person, the homeless person that froze to death, the human element seems absent from some that call themselves progressive, because I consider myself progressive, but not them. That the human element is just as much removed from them as it is from people we see on the far right.
Yeah, I mean, I do believe in experiments, I must say. I mean, I think that's how we figure out what works. But the problem is that the experiments too often that we've been done seem rooted in theater. And politics always involves some theater. But out here too often, it's been governance that has been theater as well. And the upshot is this incredible gulf between our intentions, between our values and our outcomes. And, there is the West Coast, I mean, like much of the country, was deeply concerned about a history of racist policing after the George Floyd case, about deep race gaps, and those were real. And they needed to be addressed. But one way in which in Portland that was addressed was a bunch of well-meaning folks created a Portland Bail Fund, which was meant to provide bail for people of color. And, you know, this was well-intentioned. This addressed a real problem, but the upshot was that they used that bail fund to bail out a African-American man who had violated his restraining order in a domestic violence case. Once bailed out, he went to the home of his ex, who he had previously threatened, and she was stabbed to death, and he is now awaiting trial for that murder. And it sure looks as if we had a very well-meant effort to support people of color that ended up taking the life of a woman of color.
And Nick, do you feel like there are good solutions that are on the table to homelessness in particular that are not being picked up either at by the state legislature or maybe cities because of concerns that some element of the policy is going to offend a constituency? Or are the solutions just not, or do we not even know what the right solutions are?
I think, you know, one of the paradoxes of homelessness is that we had solutions before we got rid of them. You know, traditionally, we had rooming houses, we had boarding houses, we had a lot of cheap housing and, mobile home lots, things like this. And then we engaged in zoning, which had many advantages in single family zoning, but that did raise the cost of housing. And I think there's this misperception that it's all about addiction. And indeed, addiction does have a big interplay with homelessness, but West Virginia has an enormous problem with addiction, and they don't have a problem with homelessness because in West Virginia, you can rent a place for $650 a month. If one could do that in San Francisco or Portland or Seattle, we would have much less of a problem. And so I think it's been frustrating that we know intellectually that we need to build more housing, but we have made it very, very difficult and expensive to build that housing, with the result that the people who get left behind are those who are vulnerable and in some cases end up dying in the streets.
The piece is titled, "What Have We Liberals Done to the West Coast?" You can read it now on the New York Times website. New York Times opinion columnist Nicholas Kristof. Nick, thanks as always for being here. We appreciate it.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.